further than Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs. I'm Ron Phillips, co-owner of Romika Designs. We offer custom laser engraving services for a variety of products, including promotional items and corporate or personal gifts. With state-of-the-art equipment and a team of skilled designers, we can engrave intricate designs on virtually any material. Whether it's a special message, a company logo, or a custom design, Romika Laser Engraving will help you make your mark. And the best part, our prices are affordable and our turnaround time is quick.
I couldn't be happier with the work Romika Laser Engraving did for me. The engraving on my product was precise and exactly what I wanted.
So don't wait any longer to add a personal touch to your products. Call Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs today at 817-400-4040 or visit our website at romikadesigns.com. We look forward to helping you make your mark.
Hey travelers, do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call, because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. Our prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find ridiculously low prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next flight. Guaranteed. Also, save up to 50% off business and first class tickets.
855-325-1820. 855-325-1820. That's 855-325-1820.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
Have you ever met a single person in your life that enjoys paying taxes? No, no one does. If you can't sleep at night because you have a huge problem with the IRS, I've got some free advice for you. This service is strictly limited to individuals that owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes. And if you qualify, we can guarantee that you won't be writing a big fat check to the IRS, or our services cost you nothing. The first 100 people that call today will get a free tax consultation worth $500. Stop worrying about your IRS problem. We can help you, we promise. Call the tax doctor right now. I mean right now, to learn more.
800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. That's 800-240-4587.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Angelo Rocha. I am the host of Vet for Vets, a show where we take local, pretty much military guys, veterans. Well, we try to take veterans and we interview them, / chit-chat with them, / bullshit with them. And we discuss their life before, during, and after their military service. But there's certain instances like today where I have a guest who's technically not a veteran, but he deals with things that affect veterans directly, things that affect me as a veteran directly. And today I have with me future Congressman Matthew LUCCI.
Angelo, sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, Angelo, it's great to be on. Always great to be on Joco Community Radio. Thank you very much for having me on. As someone who grew up in Johnson County, um, it's my honor to be on this radio station every single time, and especially with you. I mean,
Well, to us, think of this as an investment. We support you. We support your causes. We support everything that you believe in, and we're hoping that one day in the future, we won't be able to reach out to you because you're just going to be too super busy following through with the things that you promised that you'd be doing, especially when it involves the candidate that you're hopefully going to be running against, which we're going to be talking about later. So before we get started on the show, and people, you're more than welcome to send us a message, to comment, to ask questions to Matthew. Maybe he can answer them for you. Don't be sending questions like, what's your favorite color? Ask questions like, what's your take on veteran healthcare? Stuff like that. So anyway, before we get started, as you know, I'm a veteran, and sometimes I suffer through some minor depression, or I go through things. It's naturally what happens, because when you go through war, things affect you mentally that you really can't help it. One of them happens to be depression. And if you're a veteran and you're going through depression, or you're going through some kind of mental issue that involves addiction, spousal related stuff involving divorce, marriage, things involving your kids where they're not straightening up, and you're thinking it's the end of the road for you. You have nowhere else to turn to. You have nobody else to turn to, and you think it's the end of the world. It's the end of the world for you. I just want to let you know that there's people like me and there's people like Matthew out there who would be willing to take your phone call any time of the day, 24 hours a day, and they will be able to talk to you and try to help you find the right people to take care of your problem. Okay? And I'm deadly serious about this, because right now we're having around 21 to 22, sometimes even more than that, veterans a day killing themselves over something that they could have prevented if they just went and reached out to somebody. If you're a veteran and you're so proud to reach out to somebody because you feel like nobody's able to help you, you are wrong. You are wrong on so many levels you just don't understand. Seriously. And today we're hopefully Matthew and I will be able to discuss ways that he can possibly improve the life of me as a veteran, and also everybody out there in Johnson County. So before we get started about your political background and your fight for veterans, and your fight for conservatism, your fight for Republican people, and the fight for really everybody in the 25th district, we want to know a little bit about you, and we want the people of Johnson County to know who you are as a person. And so my first question for you was, where did you grow up and how was it?
yeah, I actually grew up here in Johnson County. I grew up in a tiny town called Venus. If anyone's heard
Venus.
of it.
Yeah, okay, we know Venus.
Yeah, right down the road, right off of 67. I played baseball there. I played baseball here in Burleson as well growing up.
Really?
I was a homeschooled kid, and so we would play sports at different
explains
places.
a lot. That explains why you're clean cut and not damaged from all the high school BS.
Or maybe I was. I was the second of 7 kids, and so if you're not fighting with one of your brothers or sisters, what else are you doing? Studying?
Yeah. So you grew up in Venus. You said you had 7 brothers and sisters.
If
you want, you can name drop. You can name drop them all if you know.
I want to give a shout out to all of my brothers and sisters. Older brother Benjamin, younger sisters Rebecca and Rachel, and then 3 younger brothers, Jacob, Isaiah, and Hezekiah, and then also my new beautiful wife, Jen.
We'll get to her in a little bit. So your mom and dad still both around?
Yeah, they still live in Venus.
Oh, that's good.
4 of my siblings still live down there in Venus as well.
Okay, wow, that's fantastic. How were they growing up? From the names of your brothers and sisters, I'm guessing you grew up in a religious household?
Yeah, both my parents had theology degrees. They met in college, and first day of college.
Oh, nice.
And from my dad's side, it was love at first sight. From my mom,
Well, most women are like that. Most women, you kind of have to earn their love and admiration and stuff like that. It's more, and women mostly tolerate us men. I'm sure you know that. So how were your parents growing up? Like, how were they like? Strict, kind of open to letting you do your own things? What?
Yeah, I would say at first they were more strict, and then as we got older and they started having more kids, they started to realize that they might be able to keep 2 kids in line, maybe 3, but when you start getting 4, 5, 6, and 7,
well, that's when they let the older siblings take over as
Absolutely. We were surrogate parents
babysitters.
pretty young in life. And, I remember potty training my younger brothers
Yeah.
and, changing diapers
That's
and stuff
awesome.
like that.
So do they do they love what you're doing right now, trying to be the next congressman for the 25th?
Yeah. To my knowledge,
I hope so, because
they seem
because
to
what
like it.
happens is sometimes families have liberal, Democratic side, and they're like, no, you're going to be a horrible congressman. So, but we're going to discuss what pushed you to doing this. I'm sure there's a reason for it, why you're doing this. But so, how was your days in high school? Did you have a good? Excuse me, while you were learning homeschooling, were you the bookworm? Were you more the playful sports type? How were you?
Yeah, I was more of the bookworm type. I actually graduated 3 years early from homeschool.
Oh, dang.
Went to college when I was 15.
Can't say that. But
Well, it was a fun experience. I went to a college in Dallas. Went to SMU in Dallas, which
Yeah.
at the time was 4 times the size of my hometown, just to the student population alone. So that was a culture shock to me, but it was also a great chance for me to learn how to get my head out of the book a little bit
Yeah.
while still learning and interacting with people. And then also hopefully paving the way for some of my younger brothers and sisters, because growing up,
Yeah, you got to be a good example. Yeah, you got to lead by example.
exactly. And when I was growing up, we didn't have a whole lot. There were times, especially during the 2008 financial crisis, where my dad had lost his job. We didn't know where our next meal was coming from. We didn't know if there was going to be a roof over our head the next month.
Yeah.
And so early on, I didn't think that I was going to go to college. I thought, yeah, I'm on track to graduate at 15, but then what? I have to wait a couple years before I can get a job.
Yeah.
But some things fell into place where I was able to go to college. I was able to work my way through college. I worked 3 jobs and tutored on the side while taking 18
Dang.
hours. I
Did
graduated.
you sleep?
Rarely. And that's something my wife doesn't like to this day.
Yeah,
is I'm more of a night owl because I had to work on
Yeah,
homework
because
at night.
you're trying to make a better life for you and your possible future spouse or children that you might possibly have. It makes sense. You were investing in your future, and that's good.
And now I have the tremendous opportunity to be an example to my younger brothers and show them what's possible, because I grew up not knowing that a lot of stuff was possible. I grew up not knowing that it was possible for me to go to college. I grew up not knowing it was possible for me to start a business. I grew up not knowing that it was possible for me to run for Congress. And when I announced my congressional run, I made sure that they were there.
Yeah.
And I made sure that they heard me talking about them
Yeah.
right there in the front,
Yeah.
saying, I'm doing this in part to make sure that there's a better life for my young brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And I want to do this so that they know that they can do anything that they want to do.
That's good. Well, that's a good example to lead by. Man, that's pretty awesome. So, what kind of degree did you get in college?
Undergrad, I got a mechanical engineering degree. Grad school, another mechanical engineering.
You told me that,
degree.
but I just need to ask you so that way you can tell the audience this. The reason for my show here, when you're watching there or you're watching behind me right here, the reason for my show today is because we want to get to know you, because a lot of people know I'm a hardcore conservative, considering I'm an immigrant that came from another country who didn't speak a lick of English when he came to America, but somehow learning what I have learned through the military and from living here in America, I realized this country has given my family the opportunity to thrive and give me an opportunity more than any other possible location in the world. Sure, I'm sure I could have been like some famous soccer player in Portugal or whatever, but I feel like America has given my family everything. And that's why I joined the military, so I can repay back what it has given me. What was the main reason that you decided one day, you know what, I'm just going to go run for Congress?
Yeah.
Why straight to Congress? Why not try to be a mayor? Why not try to be some kind of local politician? Why straight for the congressman?
The biggest reason why I chose to do this was because fentanyl is pouring into our communities. And
it is record. I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah, it's killing friends of mine. It's killing family of mine. The same reason why I started a business 3.5 years ago. I'm a medical technology entrepreneur. I invented a device after a close friend died. Um, and a lot of other friends and family were getting addicted to opioids. I invented a device that could detect how much was in their system and then also use that to automatically dose exactly the amount they need so they don't get
So
high.
you can counter the amount so you don't do too much of it. That makes sense.
Exactly. And the goal behind that was to prevent people from getting addicted to their pain meds. And, we're going through the FDA right now.
Yeah. Can you do one for Democrats and brain cells? I'm just wondering, just to make sure they actually have enough brain cells to communicate. Because some Democrats I know are just so lost into what's going on. They're like one path. They're not seeing everything in general. I'm glad we have you running for.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll put that on my list of the next thing to do. I'll bring it up into our company leadership meeting later
the
this
next
week.
one, the brain cell detector. It only works on Democrats and socialists and liberals and anybody that believes that anything with ism, Marxism, socialism, anybody.
Yeah, but Angelo, what we see is over the last several years, we've had an increase in the number of fentanyl-related deaths or opioid-related deaths.
Yeah, or a lot of people have been injured too. The ones that survived are just mentally incapacitated now. They can't communicate right. They're having brain function issues. It's horrible.
Absolutely. And some of the things that we could do can only be done on a federal level.
Yeah.
Securing the border. There's a debate right now whether that's a state thing, whether that's a federal thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's either the governor or it's Congress. And Congress has been running on this for 50 years and have done nothing.
Yeah.
Even our current congressman, the man that I'm running against in the Republican primary, back in 2019, he voted against the border wall because, in his words, he'd never been a big wall guy.
Oh my gosh. He probably has a wall around his mansion. I mean, at least I would think so.
Well, it depends which of his many properties you're referring to.
Yeah.
But yeah, since then, since 2019, when he voted against the border wall, we have seen 4 times the number of deaths due to fentanyl year over year than there were 4 years ago.
Yeah, you have to track it too. If you track the fatalities by markers, you will actually see it's actually making its way further and further north, northwest, and northeast. Is just straight up like almost like a volcano. It's just slowly making its way.
Absolutely, and I-35, which is like 2 minutes away from the studio here, is a major drug trafficking corridor. It's a major human trafficking corridor. And so drugs and child prostitutes
a lot of
are
big
being brought
cities
in.
here. A lot of big cities here in Central Texas have been doing a lot of raids and a lot of stings on operations like that. They're trying to find these people that are doing this, that are coming here legally, that are they're selling drugs to these young kids. So unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's really the reason why I decided to get into this race, because I saw, based on talking to my legislators, that it was not a big issue for them. It was not a priority for them.
Why not? That's kids that are dying, of full-grown adults that are trying. Yes, I get it. Some people are addicted to drugs and they take drugs, but that drug that they're trying to find is laced with just a minuscule amount of fentanyl, and it's killing them.
Yeah. One of the things that might shock you is politicians who are elected don't care about anything if it won't help them or hurt them get elected.
Yeah, it's more an investment when they pander.
Yeah,
they pander for the votes.
Exactly. I talked to one incumbent member of Congress about ways that we could reach out to voters on the left on certain issues and bring them over where there's common ground.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, "This district is 75% Republican. Come back to me when it's 50-50.
Yeah.
That is the mentality of the vast majority of members of Congress.
It shouldn't be like that. No, I get it. If it's 75 Republican, that means when you're elected, you should still support the 100%, not just the 75%. And that's what a lot of politicians are doing wrong, is they're talking to the party, the constituents that voted for them. A lot of these politicians, hopefully even if you do not like liberal mindsets or, democratic mindsets, you still have to remember that they also live in your district.
Absolutely. And
I know you'll take care of them as well.
Absolutely. I'm not just here to be the Republican congressman.
Yeah.
I'm here to be the congressman of the 25th congressional
and that's
district.
the way it should be, and that's not what's happening right now.
Exactly. I mean, fentanyl is killing kids of all race. It's killing adults of every political and ideological background. It's impacting us all. And so we need to address the issues that impact everybody equally, as well as push our more conservative agenda that we know is better for our community. We know is better for the United States.
Well, absolutely. But a lot of people don't want to listen. It just goes in one ear, out the other. So you're talking about fentanyl. What would you do if my vote counted and it wasn't stolen like the 2020 election? And if my vote counted and you got elected, and the incumbent that's in there now was voted off for the first time in 75 years, because I think that's how long he's been there. I have no problems with the man, but he's been there a long time, and it feels like nothing's getting done. If you were, what would you try to do? What kind of bills and common sense laws would you try to pass with your fellow congressman to try to help fight this battle with fentanyl? What would you do?
Yeah, it's a great question. The first thing we got to do is secure the border. The vast majority.
So lock up the border right away and let people only in at entry points.
Well, that's the way the border should be.
That's
people should only come in through entry points.
But that's not what's happening. They're coming in everywhere, and they're just allowed to get in.
Yeah, well, I will say that I'm going to vote for a border wall immediately. I'm going to be sponsoring or co-sponsoring the first bill of that session to build a border wall to divert the cartel members and the criminals who are trying to get across illegally to choke points, so that our brave men and women of Border Patrol can intercept them and can take the drugs away from them and make sure they don't get into the hands of our kids in elementary school, middle school, et cetera here.
Should you try to make the laws harsher on them? So say, for example, if they're only getting 10 years for certain drugs, would you try to do maybe 25 years, make them really know, hey, don't do this shit in our country?
That's a great suggestion. And one thing that you'll find on my website, LUCCIfortexas.com, is the plan to label any overdose as a drug poisoning, as a fentanyl poisoning.
Yes.
So that we can hold those accountable who sold it for what they did, because they are poisoning our children. And if a child or an adult dies because they took something that they didn't know was laced with fentanyl, then whoever sold it to them has committed manslaughter. They've committed murder and should be tried as such.
I like that idea. And if you're held in contempt for manslaughter, God willing, they do what they got to do to them in prison. I feel the same way. Well, how do you feel? Another thing, how do you feel about pedophiles? Would you try to pass laws to maybe make it hard, like Florida? They made it it's a death penalty for all pedophiles. Would you try to do something like that here in Texas?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, Angelo, I am proud to have been the author of the congressional pledge to fight human trafficking.
Good.
We've got so far, 4 members, 4 individuals who are running for Congress in the state of Texas have already signed on to this pledge.
Sweet.
And so there's 3 big parts to it. The first part is not accepting campaign donations from organizations that are known to have done business with human trafficking. And the reason why that's in the pledge is that over 100 members of Congress right now received money from Jeffrey Epstein's company.
Oh my goodness.
And
so no more donations from Disney. Got it.
No more donations from Disney either. The second pillar is calling for the release of the Epstein client list, because we cannot put pedophiles behind bars. We cannot bring them to justice
if you don't know who they are.
And if the Department of Justice, which has the list,
well, that's because a lot of politicians are on that list.
Exactly. Like I was on Jake Wernett's show a few weeks ago, and I said that the reason why that the Epstein client list has not been released yet is because a lot of members of Congress are on that list. A lot of their donors are on that list.
It's true. Well, but I actually heard a little bit more in depth because I have a lot of police officer friends. There's actually a lot more going on to that. What's going on is, I can't believe what's going on, but they're doing a gigantic sting. The government is. They know who the people are on this list, and they're trying to catch these people. They're trying to find all their text messages and emails and all of that. So, and it's taken a while because there's a lot of people on this list. And there's also people on this list who never even did anything wrong. They're just there as visitors, like Bill Gates, who's been apparently on this island many times, but he's like, no, I only went there to visit the island because I was invited there. It's like, come on.
Supposedly.
Yeah,
I mean,
supposedly.
you.
The media says supposedly, but if it was Donald Trump, yeah, he did it. That's what the media would say.
I mean, that's the problem when you have hyper biased media,
Yeah.
where you're not even in it for news anymore. You're just in it to push a political agenda.
That's it.
Um, the last pillar of that pledge that we're getting more and more congressional candidates to sign on is that we're all pledging to co-sponsor anti-trafficking legislation.
Oh man, I can't wait.
And so what I believe is that we're going to see this big wave of anti-trafficking legislation in the next 2 years, in the next 4 years, that will bring a lot of the people who are on Epstein's island,
Yeah.
people who are
Still involved with it.
still involved with it to this day,
Yeah.
that those individuals are finally going to face justice, and it's going to be harsh,
Good.
and it's going to be swift.
That's what the law needs to be, harsh punishment. I don't care if they're a preacher. I don't care if they're a nun or anybody of political affiliation that everybody loves. I don't care. If you're involved in that child trafficking, you need to be sent to prison for a long time.
Absolutely. And when I look at my little brothers when I'm out here on the campaign trail, and sometimes I have them with me, I cannot imagine anything going on with, like, you can talk trash about me all you want. You can get into a verbal altercation with me if you want to when I'm out campaigning. You can say what you want about me, but do not hurt my brothers. Do not hurt my sisters. Do not hurt the children of Johnson County, or there will be hell to pay. And that's what we want to bring as congressional candidates. If you hurt these children, there will be hell to pay.
Mm-hmm.
There will be a long prison sentence ahead of you if you're lucky.
I can't wait. Can't wait because, man, I tell you what, it's bad. Have you seen Sound of Freedom yet?
Yes, my wife and I went and saw that a few weeks ago.
Yeah, same here. The movie is not getting its credit. That movie is so well done. If you haven't seen it yet, go see the movie The Sound of Freedom, or excuse me, Sound of Freedom. The film is so well done. It would be an Oscar nominee for Best Picture if it wasn't so biased. If the Hollywood wasn't so against it, it would probably win Best Picture because it's literally one of the best films I had ever seen. The beginning shot with the little girl all the way to the very end, unbelievable. I mean, the little girl goes full circle, gets taken, and then comes back to her family, and it's just like, wow. Just couldn't believe how well the movie was done.
The movie was well done, and it was based on a true story.
Yeah, I know.
And it's one of the things that has really lit a fire under the butts of a lot of candidates for Congress, a lot of members of Congress, such as Chip Roy down in Texas 21.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing a great job with pushing for border funding.
Yeah.
He's doing a pretty good job of calling out the need for anti-trafficking legislation. And we're pretty sure, and we're hopeful that we can get Chip Roy to sign on to our congressional pledge.
The same thing with Nels. Congressman Nels will probably do it in a heartbeat because he's a hardcore conservative like me as well. So that'd be fantastic. So we're talking about human trafficking. We're talking about fentanyl. Those were just two topics. What other topics do you want to bring up later on the second half of the show?
Yeah, well, this week we're making a big push for our veterans policy.
Which is why you're on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we want to be talking about veterans healthcare, and we also want to be talking about reforming the tax code, which is what everybody wants to hear. But reforming the tax code for military families, we're going to make it a lot easier on them. And we're also going to save the government, meaning all of us as taxpayers. We're going to save us as taxpayers a lot of money to provide better care for all of our military
and they
veterans.
deserve it.
Absolutely. They have earned every ounce of it.
I agree with you. Tell me something that people don't know about you before we go to commercial break. Something that they don't know.
Something that they don't know about me.
And don't say, "Oh, I hate mushrooms." That's not what I'm talking about. There's something about you that people just don't know.
Something about me that people don't know. I am the youngest congressional candidate in the country. I'm 24 years old, and several decades younger than the current guy.
Well, mentally, you're probably about 40. How long has been Biden in office? 47 years in office.
He's been there a long time.
So mentally, you're probably about 48 years compared to his 47, because that man has literally done nothing for this country.
And the other thing that I'll say that a lot of people still don't know about me was I was the youngest professor in the UT system.
Dang.
Yeah,
Professor?
I am a professor of mechanical engineering.
My goodness. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I love to teach, and I love engineering. I love solving problems.
Same here. I'm the same way. How many patents do you have?
Right now we've got 3 pending.
3 patent. Dang.
You know, consider I'm still pretty young.
Yeah. Don't forget the patent for the brain cell counter, just to make sure we get that in there.
I'll go in with you on it.
Okay, my name is Angelo Rocha. We're about to go to commercial break. This is Vet for Vets. When we get back, we're going to talk about some other policies involving veterans with future Congressman Matthew LUCCI, who's candidate for the 25th District, Congressional District, by the way. Love you guys. Thank you for listening. We have quite a few people watching right now. I'm actually kind of surprised. I'm thinking it's all for you, not for me. All right. Well, we'll be back. This is Vet for Vets.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith Publishing to publish their book? Because Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. We provide authors freedom and flexibility throughout the publishing process, professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
Dum. Matthew LUCCI. That's Italian.
Yeah, it's Italian.
I figured that. Mine is Roca, like Portuguese. But anyway. So before we get started, the second half, I just want to mention that Joco Community Radio is proud to be the voice of Johnson County, Texas. Also, by the way, I'm changing this up just for today. Joco Community Radio and Matthew LUCCI are proud to be the voice of Johnson County, Texas, and they are live 24/7 on the TuneIn Radio Network. TuneInJoco.com is the place to find all the ways to listen and watch, and the station app is also available for free on Android and Apple devices. Simply search your store. Check out our lineup and more at jococommunityradio.com. This episode and more are brought to you by Next Level Claims. That's Next Level Claims, making your insurance work for you. Reach out to your Texas sales rep at 844-TEX-HAIL. That's 844-839-4245. Be sure to dress your arms and more at thetiffy.com. So thetiffy.com is a website that has a lot of wife-inspired things, things that you can get for your wife, kind of little trinkets and sleeves and stuff like that. Leading me up to the next question. You were talking about this fantastic woman that you met. And so let's talk about your wife, because she's going to be technically the first lady of the 25th District.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. So
she'd make a great one. I'll tell you that.
So tell me a little bit about her, like how you met her and get to know about you.
Yeah, we actually, just show you how young we are. I guess we met on a Christian dating app.
People still do that.
People still do that, and occasionally it's successful.
Yeah.
She was
case in point.
Yeah, she was living in Houston at the time. I was living up in Arlington, and we just hit it off. I went down there, and we had a good first date, and continued to talk after that. And, now 2.5 years later, we're happily married. We live together in Arlington, just up the road, and she's the most amazing woman I've ever met, and incredibly beautiful. So check out my website. There's a photo of her under the the Meet Matthew page. Click on that. You'll see me with my beautiful wife and some of my siblings.
So do you have any plans for kids in the future?
We're planning on having a couple of kids, probably around 2 years from now, maybe
just
2,
not
3.
7, right?
Just not 7. That's a bit much for anybody.
Yeah, some parents are great examples of what not to do. Well, that's one a great example. My mom and dad just had me and my sister, and that's all I have. And we loved it, just having me and my sister. But I mean, I think 2 kids is good.
The vast majority of people, they like the environment that they grew up in because it feels like home to them. It feels normal to them. And so it would be normal to me if we had 7, but that's a lot.
That is
kids.
a lot to take care of. You remember what it took for you to take care of your little brothers? Oh my goodness. I can only imagine 7 kids. So little useless fact. Did you know that if the Earth's population, if every single person on Earth, every woman only was capable of having just 2 children, and that's all they were able to pop out, do you know that the Earth's population would stay stable? It would never increase. The population would just stay at whatever we're at now. If something of some kind of miraculous God power came down and all women were only able to have 2, excluding all the women that have already had more than 2, Earth's population would stay the same. Saw that the other day on some news network. I was like, that's actually pretty weird statistic.
I mean, it makes sense that every generation would then have the exact same number of people.
The same amount, because the death rate and the birthing rate would actually be the same, and then it would just kind of equal out. Fatalities, accidents, everything would just kind of equal out over time. Just a little known fact. I'm the king of useless knowledge.
Well, my wife would beg to differ. I'm usually the king of useless knowledge.
That's true. Well, you are a professor, so you know mechanical engineering, which I also happened. I went to OU for mechanical engineering, which is pretty good. So
a couple of engineers talking politics on Joco Radio.
Veteran. So now comes to the point where why you're here. Why Matthew? Well, I'm talking to you. Why Matthew is here on Vet for Vets? You are a big proponent of pushing pro-military, pro-veteran, pro-first responder, pro everything that's pretty much your pro everything that's American.
Absolutely.
What exactly do you plan on doing for people like me who are struggling financially or maybe are not getting the benefits that I'm supposed to be given? What are you going to do for me when you're in office?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing, and the reason before I get to that question, and maybe it makes me sound like a politician for saying, before I get to your question,
you got to go like this.
Before I get to your question, I love having fun with you on this show.
Yeah. Why they do that? What is that? I think what it is what they do is they pick a booger, they hold it in their hand, they don't want to squirt it, and they go like that because they flick at the opponent.
Maybe. But one thing that I said to Greg Cooper several weeks ago was, when I was growing up, I was always told, never meet your heroes. You'll always be disappointed by them.
It's true.
And that's true if your heroes are the wrong people.
Yeah.
But Angelo, I've had the privilege in my life to meet tens of thousands of veterans, and I knock on doors throughout the district, and people tell me about their military experiences, and I can tell you, every time I meet one of those heroes, I am never disappointed.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is lost on those who are sending y'all off to war, those who are leaving you on the streets when you come back and not giving you everything that was promised to you when your recruiter, I'm going to say, conned you into, being in 11 Bravo, for example, where they're like, hey, here's this job for you that is perfect for you, when they're meeting a quota. Let's all be honest.
That's
here.
what it is. You won't believe it. Yeah, 11 Bravo. Yeah, there are so many that are needed right now in the field. They're paying top-notch dollars for you, and they believe it.
Well, you know who's getting paid top-notch dollar to fill those is the recruiters. Yep. all that's lost on the folks who are in Washington, D.C. And so I think it's very fitting that you bring up, what am I going to do to help?
Mhm.
Well, there's three things. One is veteran services. Just anyone can call up the office and say, hey, I'm having trouble with the VA. Hey, I'm having trouble with Medicare, Medicaid, just getting.
Yeah, something where they're having an issue.
Yeah, something where they're having an issue. Your congressman is supposed to, keyword supposed to,
reach out,
intercede for you. For those of you who are listening and are Christians, you're familiar with intercessory prayer, where you pray on someone else's behalf, you pray for someone else. Your congressman is supposed to intercede for you in veteran services. And while you can join our prayer list, and we will pray for you, we do have a campaign prayer list.
Yeah.
We will also, when we're elected, be able to tell the VA, look, these are my constituents.
Yeah.
There's a list that they need to be on, and I'm not satisfied if they're not at the top of that list.
on that list? Why are they not? Yep.
Absolutely. So that's the first thing.
You're gonna have to hold people accountable. I mean, seriously, because there's a lot of people that are in it just for the money. They're not in there for the job position. If people are in a job position, they're there to help people. They should be there to help people, but they're not. Especially in government jobs.
Yes. And I've heard.
I'm sure you know
from
DMV, Department of Motor Vehicle. Oh my gosh, back in the day when it was called DMV, yeah, it's like they're in a government position and they just don't care about the actual people. They just want to do the 8 hours, 10 hours, and go home.
And that's why we all have to hold our elected officials accountable. And I'm asking people who are listening to this to go to my website, LUCCIfortexas.com. There's tons of places on that website where you can enter in a message and send it to me. And even after I'm elected, I want y'all to hold me accountable. If I do not do the things that I say that I'm going to do, vote me out. That is something that we should be doing to all of our politicians, anyone who's running for anything. We also need to be holding our bureaucrats accountable. And this world would be a lot better if there were not just a few less bureaucrats, but a lot less bureaucrats.
Yes, a lot. Same thing with lobbyists.
Absolutely. A lot less lobbyists, a lot less bureaucrats, really a lot less career politicians.
When this Weinstein or Feinstein, whatever, Epstein, same thing. And when that list gets released and they start going after these people, I'm quite sure a lot of those lobbyists are going away too.
Oh, yes. There will be a point in the not so distant future where those lobbyists cannot hide anymore. Those politicians cannot hide anymore. Those donors cannot hide anymore.
It's true.
And like I said, I'm proud to be the author of the Congressional Pledge to End Human Trafficking, the Congressional Pledge to Fight Human Trafficking. It's available on our website, bottom of every page. There's a little thing.
Why aren't 100% of the politicians on board with this?
Because a lot of them are on that list.
A lot of
them. and they don't want to be calling out for that list.
You can snip that if you're a local district politician. You can click that. He said it. A lot of you are on that list, and it's true.
And so the last couple of things that I wanted to bring up of a real policy change that we can bring. One of those is expanding the VA Mission Act. And we've done this once before. Prior to the expansion of the VA Mission Act, any military veteran who was getting their VA benefits, going to get health care, had to do so at a VA facility.
Yep. Listen to this if you're a veteran.
Now, after the expansion of the VA Mission Act, if you live more than 60 miles away from a specialist or more than 30 miles away from your primary care, then you can go to somewhere in your local community and the VA will reimburse that. What I would like to do, and we're drafting the legislation now, we're committed to introducing this legislation, and I'm pretty sure we will get this passed, is expand the VA Mission Act again so that any veteran, no matter where you live, can access care at any hospital or any clinic in the US.
Location. That's good. And that's the way it should have been in the first place.
Absolutely. Like if you're going to go visit your grandkids in Minnesota and you twist your ankle, you shouldn't have to come all the way back to Texas before you can have that ankle
But that's
treated.
what's happening right now because they look at where your your residence is.
Absolutely. And the thing is, it's causing our veterans, and many of y'all, thank you very much for listening and listening into the show. Many of you are listening on the show. Many of y'all have experienced something like this where you cannot get care at the hospital right down the street from you.
True.
You have to go to downtown Dallas. You have to go to Fort Worth. You have to go to the clinic in Granbury, which some of those are good facilities if you can get in.
Yeah. Some not so.
Some not so great. But you're kind of stuck there based on where you live. And so
Yeah.
a lot of veterans start moving around, especially later in life, so they can get closer to care.
That's what usually happens.
Because they think, if I move here, maybe I might be able to access care. Maybe I might be higher on their list.
Yeah.
We're posting stuff all week about wait times across the country. And in San Antonio, people are waiting up to 98 days to get care in their local clinic because they happen to live within 30 minutes of that clinic, so they have to go.
Swamped.
So any veteran should be able to go anywhere in this country. And the interesting thing is that will actually save money.
How is that possible?
Because right now, in order to go just to the VA costs $380 million a year to run.
Only that?
Sorry, 380 billion. My bad.
Yeah,
380.
I was quite sure it was way more than that.
$billion a year to run. Where if we went to this system using the Congressional Budget Office scoring, it would cost about 180 billion.
How is that possible?
Because you get rid of a lot of the bureaucrats in the VA who are just there to be like, okay, Angelo, you're 38th on the list.
Yep.
Well, it's a new month. We don't have the facility
We're
ready
only
for
accepting
you.
37.
Yeah. I mean, we don't need people to keep track of what order you are on the list.
You're paying people that don't need to be getting paid.
Absolutely. And you don't need those folks keeping track of where you are on the list. If you could just go to any clinic whenever you wanted and spread out that that care system to the private sector as well, which usually has better care than the VA, has lower wait times than the VA. And I'm not dissing the VA because a lot of those facilities do have good high quality care. Many of them do not. The standards of care are way different depending on
everything you're saying is true. I have a friend named Bobby Riley. He's in the same position. He knows which facilities are good for you and which ones will treat you like shit. And they won't take care of you. They won't look at you like you're a human being. They'll just act like you're just a statistic, like you're a number. And that's not right.
Yeah, absolutely not. And we have to open that up and let the free market, so to speak, provide the best possible services, which end up being at a lower cost. I could get into preventative care versus care on the back end and which one of those costs more money. But it will cost the taxpayers a lot less money if we actually took care of our veterans.
Yeah.
Because, I've heard from many veterans about what it's like being a veteran in this country, especially if you served in Vietnam or Korea. And even now with Iraq and Afghanistan, you come home and then everything that you fought for is no longer fighting for you.
Nope.
Like if you're homeless on the street, the federal government doesn't care. Congress doesn't care about you.
No.
If you are worried about whether you're going to have a house or a roof over your head or food on your table, Congress doesn't care about you.
At the same time, it's also up to you to try to get you that house, to get you that shelter, to get you that clothing. If you want to be homeless, that's on you. But the VA is there to try to get you out of that rut, to get you out of that lifestyle that they know you deserve better. But there's a lot of veterans who don't care. They're anti-establishment. They don't want anything to do with the government. They want the government to stay out of it. But they're also the people who have pay that's due to them. They should have had 100% disability decades ago, but they're so proud of themselves they don't care, and they just kind of push that off.
Well, a lot of it is also what we were just talking about. It is incredibly difficult to get your appointment at the VA.
It takes a long
even
while.
Discuss what your benefits should be. To even have that doctor's checkup that they'll say, okay, yes, you are 75% disabled or 50% disabled, so these are your benefits. It takes a long time to get to that point, and then once you get to that point, it takes a long time to get the care that
they might even say no. They might even say no. You might have waited 6 months to be looked at by a doctor, and the doctor's like, okay, nothing's wrong with you. That's it. You get nothing. At least you got looked at.
I mean, that's the sad thing. You're over here being like, well, it's 6 months. At least you got looked at.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be the bar.
It shouldn't be.
You should be able to go to, a clinic here in Burleson or down in Cleburne or anywhere else around here, wherever you want to go. If you happen to work in Fort Worth, and your back's been acting up again, you should be able to go to a hospital or clinic in Fort Worth
Right
after
there.
work.
Yeah. And then the VA can just pay them.
Exactly.
Through some kind of,
That's what the first expansion of the VA Mission Act did, that opened that door for it.
Yeah.
And we're spending way too much money on ineffective hospitals, ineffective clinics that our heroes can't access. And so that really rubs me the wrong way. And to see that that's the way that Congress has continued to set that up is, it's a lot better than it was in 2014, but a lot of things are different than they were back in 2014.
So do you plan on doing anything else for veterans other than that?
Yeah, the last major piece, and we're always looking for suggestions and ways that we can help our heroes, is eliminating the income tax for military families.
Oh man.
And so that's any active duty, anyone who's in the reserves, and their families.
What about first responders, like police officers, fire departments?
I would like to have it expanded to first responders, police officers, fire department.
Yeah. Because they're just as courageous and probably worthy as anybody else. So, in my opinion, but others will say otherwise, but I disagree with them.
Yeah, but I'm with you on principle on that. The sell is going to be a lot harder in DC.
I know, if you just concentrate one at a time. I know.
But I think that we can get Republicans and Democrats on board with giving what is essentially a tax break to our service members and their families. And then I'd like to start, after I get that wedge in the door, I'd like to expand that out to police officers, fire department.
That's smart.
Folks like that, sheriffs, things like that, so that those who are putting their lives on the line for this country, whether it's here in Burleson, whether it's down at Fort Cavazos, whether it's overseas in Iraq, Afghanistan, anywhere, or whether you're stationed out at Fort Bliss, whether you're stationed along the southern border, putting your life on the line for this country
should automatically put you on that slot whenever you're applying for your whatever 99 on your tax form, and when you apply for a new company, you should automatically have it taken out where they don't even touch it.
Absolutely. And if you're married and filing jointly, then that should apply to your spouse as well.
I agree. That sounds fantastic. If you're able to push that through, I'll tell you what, that'd be a big deal for veterans, because I know a lot of veterans are struggling right now because they're paying more into taxes than they really should.
Yeah. I think most of America is paying more in taxes than.
Oh yeah. Well, that's because our new administration is destroying this country. I'm sure you're saying it left and right.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, we got about 6 minutes. What kind of other issues are you going to be bringing to the table that maybe the people of Johnson County want to know that you'll be trying to hopefully fix for them?
Yeah.
Or make bills to pass, something.
Yeah. I've talked a lot about infrastructure so far. We've got I-35, which has been under construction my entire life.
Yes.
And there's potholes on our streets here in Burleson and down in Cleburne and in Joshua and over in Godley as well. Most of that town over there in Godley, it's a nice little town. However, it's like they paved the roads 100 years ago and thought we're good. We never have to come back.
Yep.
And so we need to be working with state and local governments to fix the things that impact everyday lives, like being able to pull your truck out of your driveway without wrecking the suspension. There's a lot of suspension places over here, a lot of mechanics.
That's probably one of the biggest pet peeves I have as a taxpayer is when I see potholes on the street that aren't taken care of. And it's like, where are my taxes going to? That's literally what taxes are for. It's to fix crap like that. Why is it not being taken care of? It's weird. In major inner cities, it's the worst.
Yes. Well, the thing about inner cities, and the reason why you've got potholes in certain parts of cities and not in others, is because they look at who votes. near apartment complexes are almost always the worst because the politicians look at an apartment complex and say they're only going to be there for a year or two.
Yep.
So they're not gonna come out and vote
Yeah,
on this.
they're not.
But the thing is, we need to be voting out on this. Those who live on streets with massive potholes need to be the ones going out voting, getting their neighbors to vote and say, this is the person who's in favor of fixing our town. This is the person who's in
Yep.
favor of, putting some asphalt down in front of our house where it's
That's
essentially just grass now.
That's it.
If you do that, every city in America would see their potholes fixed, because whether it's a city council, whether it's the United States Congress, they want to stay in power.
Yeah, they do.
And if you threaten that by saying, hey, fix our pothole, or we're all going to come out and vote.
It's weird. The people that do the most complaining are the ones who don't go out and vote. They don't go out and vote, and then they complain about the politicians or congressmen or mayors that are put in power. It's like, you didn't vote. You didn't even vote. For example, this last election we just had, it was like the lowest turnout in like history.
I saw that
It's
here in Burleson.
unbelievable. And what's weird is those same people that didn't vote or went out to vote or didn't know the vote was happening are the ones doing the most complaining on the internet and social media.
Well, the thing
Whatever.
is, I've always been a big believer of if you are not going to do something, then your complaints are just going to fall on deaf ears.
That's it.
But if you believe strongly enough to complain about something, whether it be on social media or to your friends, go do something about it. I saw in this community people dying of fentanyl, and I tried to go to my congressman. I tried to go to the state reps and tell them everything that I knew from building my company about fentanyl, and I was ignored. And so I knew then, after praying with my wife and my family, that I had to get in. And my wife is the biggest reason why I decided to get into this race.
Yeah.
And she told me, if you are not going to do this now, then more people are going to pass away. More people are going to die because no one is standing up for the children in our community, the college folks in our community, even the elderly in our community who are taking more opioids than the rest of us.
Yeah.
And some of that could be laced with fentanyl. If it's not from your doctor. So she was a huge reason why I decided to jump in this race. It was almost a moral obligation.
Yeah, you need to make yourself known. By being on shows like this, you're putting your face. However many people listen or however many people watch tonight or watch this show, that's more people than you had that even knew who you were. Maybe there's some people out there that know who you are. But you really need to go nonstop, 365 days a year until the next election is, or whenever you get up there and you're debating with Roger Williams, when you're up against him face to face and you start bringing up his history, there's nothing he can say about you. He doesn't know anything about you. But the more you put yourself out there, the more he's going to know about you. And then eventually you two are going to have a head-to-head race, and hopefully the voters make the right decisions, because I can't say who's going to ever, if they're going to vote for you or they're going to vote for Roger Williams. Just all I need to tell the voters out there is sometimes new blood means fresh blood, and fresh blood means new things that possibly could be a positive thing for America.
Yeah,
that's all I got to say.
And if I could just finish with this, if you think that our government has been caring about us in the last several years, if you think that life is better now than it was just a few years ago, and if you think that America is on the right track, then go ahead and vote for the career politician who's been in DC for the last 12 years. But if you see what I see, if you see a country where it's getting harder to keep gas in our cars, food on our tables, and roofs over our heads, then it's time for a change. Those who got us into this mess are not going to be those who get us out.
No, they're not.
So go out and vote, and also check out LUCCIfortexas.com. Learn more about me. Find out ways that you can volunteer in your own community. So we're not just complaining. We're going to be doing something about it.
So once again, that's LUCCIFORTEXAS, LUCCIfortexas.com. That's where you'll find out everything you need to know about our hopefully future politician, local congressman of the 25th district in America. You know, little steps like this on this show is what leads to bigger steps, you know, and I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully you'll be back on my show, talk
Definitely.
more about veteran health.
Anytime. Thank you,
No,
Angelo.
no problem. Love you guys. Been a pleasure. talk to you next week, hopefully. I'll be going on vacation.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
Here's important new information from the Diabetes Solution Center for you, a family member, or a loved one suffering with diabetes. If you have lost your provider, or if you need a provider for diabetic supplies, you may qualify to receive your diabetic testing supplies now with little or no out-of-pocket cost, regardless of your age. All you need is Medicare or private insurance to be potentially eligible. Call the Diabetes Solution Center right now for details. Just takes a couple of minutes. Our friendly, knowledgeable agents will give you